The restaurant fell silent. Every eye turned toward the corner table where a young woman sat alone, her hands trembling as she clutched a worn purse. Tears streamed down her cheeks, catching the dim candlelight like tiny diamonds of humiliation. She'd been sitting there for 47 minutes, watching the door, hoping her date would arrive. What she didn't know was that there never was a real date. It was all a cruel joke, orchestrated by people who thought her struggles were entertainment. But what happened next would change everything, not just for her, but for everyone who witnessed it. Maya Chen had known hardship her entire life. At 26, she worked 3 jobs to support her younger brother's medical treatments. Her days started at 5 in the morning at a bakery, continued through an afternoon shift at a call center, and ended with evening cleaning jobs at office buildings. She wore the same 4 outfits in rotation, carefully mended and pressed. Her shoes had been resoled twice, but her smile, when it appeared, could light up a room. She'd met Jessica and Brandon at the call center, or so she thought. They were friends. They'd noticed how Maya never joined them for happy hours, how she brought leftovers in reused containers, how she walked past the coffee shop every morning without stopping. To them, she was different. To them, she was a target. "We should set her up on a blind date," Jessica had whispered to Brandon one break, a cruel glint in her eye. "With someone totally out of her league." Can you imagine her face? They'd spent 2 weeks building the fantasy. Jessica showed Maya a fake profile of a successful businessman named David. She'd stolen photos from a lifestyle blog and crafted messages that were kind, interested, genuine. Maya had been hesitant at first, but Jessica pushed, insisted, promised that David was different, that he'd specifically asked about her after seeing her photo. "He said you had the most beautiful smile he'd ever seen," Jessica had lied, watching Maya's cheeks flush with hope. Now Maya sat at Marcello's, an upscale Italian restaurant she could never afford. She'd spent nearly her entire paycheck on a simple but elegant dress from a thrift store. She'd borrowed shoes from her neighbor. She'd allowed herself, for just one evening, to believe that maybe something good could happen, that maybe someone could see past her circumstances to the person underneath. The waiter had passed by 3 times with pitying glances. Other diners whispered behind their menus. And at the bar, Jessica and Brandon sat with their phones out, recording everything, barely containing their laughter. "This is gold," Brandon muttered, zooming in on Maya's face. She actually thought someone would want to date her. What none of them noticed was the man who'd been sitting 2 tables away, quietly eating alone. Alexander Cross didn't look like a billionaire. He wore a simple sweater and jeans. No watch, no flashy accessories. He'd come to Marcello's because it reminded him of his grandmother's cooking, not because he needed to be seen. At 42, he'd built a technology empire from nothing, but he'd never forgotten where he came from. He'd been watching the young woman for the past 20 minutes. He'd seen her check her phone, smooth her dress, practice her smile. He'd seen hope slowly crumble into confusion, then embarrassment, then shame. And he'd heard the couple at the bar, every cruel word. Alexander stood up. His assistant would have told him to stay out of it, to let his security handle it, to think about optics. But some things mattered more than caution. He walked past the bar, pausing just long enough to look at Jessica and Brandon's faces. "Watching your video," he said quietly. "I hope you're proud of yourselves." Then he walked to Maya's table. She was gathering her things, trying to leave with whatever dignity she had left. She didn't look up when his shadow fell across the table. "Excuse me," Alexander said gently. "I know this will sound strange, but I couldn't help noticing you've been waiting for someone. My business associate just canceled on me, and I hate eating alone. Would you mind if I joined you?" Maya looked up, her eyes red. "You don't have to do that. I know what this looks like." "It looks like their loss," Alexander said, gesturing to the empty chair. "May I?" Something in his eyes, kindness without pity, respect without judgment, made her nod. He sat down and immediately signaled the waiter. "We'll have the chef's tasting menu, please. Both of us. And bring fresh flowers for the table. These are wilting." For the first time that evening, Maya's lips twitched toward a smile. They talked. Really talked. Alexander asked about her work, and Maya found herself sharing stories about the bakery's cranky owner who secretly donated bread to homeless shelters, about the call center customer who called just to hear a friendly voice, about her brother's love for astronomy, despite never being able to afford a telescope. She didn't ask what he did. She didn't need to know his net worth. She treated him like a human being, with the same warmth she showed everyone, despite how the world had treated her. "You have 3 jobs," Alexander said, not as a question but with quiet admiration. "That must be exhausting." "I have one purpose," Maya corrected. "Everything else is just details. My brother, he's brilliant. He deserves every chance I can give him." Alexander felt something shift in his chest. When was the last time someone had talked about purpose instead of profit? About devotion instead of ambition? At the bar, Jessica and Brandon had stopped laughing. They recognized him now. Alexander Cross. His face had been on the cover of Forbes last month. He'd just donated $50 million to children's hospitals, and he was having dinner with the girl they'd humiliated. "We need to delete that video," Jessica whispered, her face pale. "Do it now," Brandon hissed back. But Alexander had already seen it. His head of security, always discreet, was already at the restaurant. The video would be traced. Their cruelty would have consequences. As dinner ended, Alexander made a call. "James, I need you to look into something. There's a young woman named Maya Chen. She has a brother in need of medical care. I want the best specialists. Private room. Full scholarship fund for him afterward. And James, I want it anonymous." He hung up and looked at Maya. "I'm glad I met you tonight. You remind me why I started my company in the first place. It wasn't to make money. It was to create opportunities for people who deserved them." "Thank you," Maya said, and she meant it for more than just dinner. For the first time in years, someone had seen her, really seen her. "The world can be cruel," Alexander said as they stood to leave. "But it can also surprise you. Keep being exactly who you are. Your kindness, your strength, your dedication, those things are rarer than any diamond. Someone will recognize that, someone worthy of you." As Maya left the restaurant, her head held higher than when she'd entered, Alexander turned to face Jessica and Brandon. His expression was calm, but his words cut through their false confidence like ice. "I know who you are. I know where you work. And I know what you did. You thought her struggles made her less than you. But she has more character in one day than you'll develop in a lifetime. I hope someday you understand what you've lost by choosing cruelty over kindness. The world remembers how you treat people when they have nothing to offer you." 3 weeks later, Maya received an anonymous letter. Her brother had been accepted into a specialized treatment program. All expenses covered, scholarship included. When she cried this time, they were tears of joy. She never knew who'd changed her life. But she paid it forward again and again, treating every person she met with the same dignity she'd been shown that night. And somewhere Alexander Cross smiled, knowing he'd gotten it right.